Something is changing in Derry, and episode 5 makes it clearer than ever. There's a moment quick, quiet, almost hidden where the town itself seems to breathe. Not Pennywise, not any character. The town. And once you see it, the entire episode starts to feel different. Like every shadow has a pulse, and every street is watching. Episode 5 isn't just building toward horror, it's telling us the secret of why Derry never lets anyone escape. Episode 5 begins in a way that almost feels calm. And that's exactly why it's unsettling. There's no jump scare, no loud moment, nothing dramatic thrown at the screen. Instead, we see Derry in that strange, early morning silence where the fog sits low and the streets look washed out. But this quiet is not peaceful. It feels like the entire town is waiting. Something about the air tells you that whatever happened at the end of episode 4 has changed the rules of the game. This episode's opening works because it plays with tension. Instead of showing it directly, kids are walking to school like everything is normal, but the camera lingers too long on empty doorways. A grocery sign flickers, but nobody is near it. A dog barks at nothing across the street, tail low, ears pinned back. These tiny details create a feeling that even if you're safe for the moment, something out there has already chosen its next move. It's a slow burn, but it stays under your skin. Then we move to the characters picking up where they left off, but with a subtle shift in how they act. Their conversations feel shorter, their eyes are jumpy, and even the jokes fall flat. It's like the event from episode 4 didn't just scare them, it drained something from them. You can tell they're starting to understand what the audience already knows. In Derry, fear doesn't fade, it grows. And episode 5 shows that growth in the smallest ways. The town starts to behave like a living thing. A mailbox creaks even without wind. A streetlight buzzes louder when someone walks beneath it. A bike left outside a house slowly rolls backward on a completely flat road. None of these things alone feel supernatural, but together, they create the idea that Derry is not just a predator, watching, waiting, choosing, and episode 5 uses this feeling to build a foundation for everything that comes later. The characters sense this too. They begin to show signs of being pulled into Derry's cycle. One of the kids checks over their shoulder every few steps, even when nothing is there. Another character keeps hearing the same sound repeating through the morning, like a soft laugh, or maybe a cry, depending on how you hear it. These are not loud moments meant to shock the viewers. They're quiet clues designed to remind you. In Derry, fear becomes part of your daily routine. Episode 5's opening also plays with memory. There are small flash glimpses, half-second images that come and go of scenes connected to something older. Something buried in the town's past. Not full flashbacks, but whispers of them. Maybe a shadow that wasn't there before. Maybe a voice that doesn't match any character. This is the episode telling us that the evil in Derry doesn't just attack, it remembers, and for the first time, the audience gets the sense that the characters are starting to remember too. Their dreams are getting worse, and their fears are becoming more specific. This tells us something big. Pennywise's influence is spreading, but not in the loud, chaotic way we're used to. It's creeping in slowly, like a cold hand resting on someone's shoulder before they realize they're not alone. This entire opening is brilliant because it shows the shift without explaining it directly. It doesn't need Pennywise on screen to make you feel his presence. It doesn't need a scare to tell you danger is close. Everything, the sound, the pacing, the way the characters look around, tells you the same message. Episode 5 is the moment when Derry stops hiding what it is, and even though nothing dramatic happens in the first minutes, you feel the dread, you feel the weight, you feel the sense that the characters are walking deeper into the heart of something ancient, something hungry. Episode 5's opening is a perfect example of horror that works not because of what it shows, but because of what it makes you expect. The moment episode 5 shifts into the children's storyline, the tone becomes sharper, almost like the camera wants us to pay closer attention. The kids have always been the emotional center of any story set in Derry, but in this episode, they feel different. Not brave or not yet, but more aware. Their fear isn't wild anymore. It's focused. They've started to understand that something in Derry is pulling them toward the truth, even if they don't want to see it. What makes their scenes stand out is the way the show uses small, ordinary moments to reveal something darker. The group walks the same path they always take, but the sounds are wrong. Leaves crunch when none of them step on them. The air feels too still. Even their shadows look longer than they should in broad daylight. It's like the world around them is stretching and twisting into a shape that matches their growing fear. As the kids talk, every line feels loaded. One of them mentions that they couldn't sleep. And it's not said dramatically, it's said like they're trying to hide how bad the dreams were. Another kid talks about hearing something under their house, even though they were too scared to check. These conversations feel so real because they show how trauma grows in quiet ways. You don't scream about it, you whisper about it, and that whisper is where episode 5's fear begins to expand. Their biggest clue comes when they reach the edge of the woods. There's nothing unusual there at first glance, but the show pushes the idea that the woods have changed. A swing that used to be tied to a branch is now hanging much lower, rope frayed like it's been handled by something with no regard for safety or shape. A piece of a balloon, just a torn scrap, lies in the dirt, half buried like someone tried to hide it. These are not accidents, they're signals. Soft signals, the kind Derry leaves for the brave or the foolish. One of the kids picks up the balloon scrap and freezes. It's not the color that scares them, it's the texture. The surface feels warm, not room temperature warm, alive warm. They drop it immediately, and the group steps back without needing to speak. That moment tells us more than any jump scare could. Pennywise's influence is no longer waiting, it's pushing. It's touching the real world. That their fear shifts again when they find the mark carved into a tree, an old symbol that fans of the larger It lore will recognize. It's not flashy, not glowing, not supernatural. It's crude, scratched deep into the bark, with lines that form something between a face and a warning. The kids argue about who might have carved it, but deep down they know the truth. This symbol is not new. It's old, maybe older than Derry, and it's showing up now means something or someone is waking. The episode doesn't spoon-feed the audience. Instead, it lets the fear grow through the kids' reactions. They stand in a circle, debating whether to go deeper into the woods. Some want answers. Some just want to get out and never come back. But the most unsettling detail is the way the forest reacts. When one of the kids takes a step forward, the birds stop chirping. When they step back, the sound returns. The forest isn't just there, it's responding. This moment highlights one of episode 5's quiet themes. Derry punishes curiosity. Every time the kids try to learn more, something reacts, not to scare them off, but to guide them in the worst possible direction. It's as if Pennywise doesn't just want them afraid, he wants them close. The kids eventually decide to leave the woods. But the way they walk out says everything. Shoulders tight, eyes darting, breathing too shallow. They don't walk like a group of kids anymore, they walk like people who just realized something ancient is watching them. And once they reach the main road again, the atmosphere changes. The light feels brighter, the noise returns, life moves normally, but the kids don't relax, not fully. The experience in the woods follows them like an unseen shadow. One kid keeps rubbing their hands like they're trying to shake off the warmth of the balloon scrap. Another refuses to look back toward the trees. These reactions are small, but powerful. They tell us that episode 5 isn't just giving clues, it's reshaping the kids' understanding of Derry. This section of the episode proves something important. Pennywise doesn't need to appear to control a scene. He doesn't need dialogue. He doesn't even need a form. His presence is a pressure, a weight, a shift in the environment. And episode 5 uses the children to show exactly how that unseen presence spreads through Derry like a sickness. When episode 5 shifts from the kids to the adults, the entire energy changes. The fear is still there, but it feels heavier, more controlled, more buried. Adults in Derry don't panic the way children do. They avoid. They pretend. They live inside a quiet agreement that some things are better left unspoken. And in this episode, that silence becomes the most frightening part of the story. The adult storyline opens with a simple scene. A parent talking to another neighbor outside their home. It should feel normal, but it doesn't. Their voices are too soft. Their eyes too tired, and the space between their words feels thick with things they're choosing not to mention. Behind them, a missing poster from episode 4 flaps in the wind. Nobody touches it. Nobody replaces it. Nobody even looks at it. It's just there, ignored, like all the other horrors in Derry that have been swallowed by routine. This is where the show makes a powerful point. The adults in Derry are not unaware. They are not clueless. They are trapped in denial that has become second nature. This is where the show makes a powerful point. The adults in Derry are not unaware. They are not clueless. They are trapped in denial that has become second nature. They know something is wrong, but acknowledging it means facing a truth too big to survive. So they bury it. They train their minds to turn away. Episode 5 reveals how deep this conditioning goes. One of the most telling scenes involves the local police station. A mother arrives to report something strange, a sound her child heard last night. Something creeping beneath the floorboards. But the officer behind the desk barely listens. He nods politely, writes nothing down, and tells her it was probably the plumbing. His voice is tired, bored, almost robotic. It's not that he doesn't believe her, it's that he can't let himself believe her. If he did, he would have to confront a pattern that stretches back decades, maybe centuries. The show then reveals another layer. The adults are not just ignoring the strange events, they're part of the machinery that keeps Derry's secrets buried. When the mother leaves the station, the officer pulls out a drawer filled with unsent reports, all marked with the same words: no further action. Some reports are brand new, others are yellowed, edges curling, the ink fading. Generations of ignored pleas, generations of warnings that went nowhere. This drawer is one of episode 5's strongest symbols, because it shows that the evil in Derry doesn't just feed on fear, it feeds on silence. The adults don't have to serve Pennywise to protect him, all they have to do is keep pretending everything is fine. Another scene takes us to a local diner, where two longtime residents talk about how kids these days make up stories. Their conversation is casual, but their eyes tell a different story. One of them stares too long at the window, where his reflection seems slightly distorted. The other stirs her coffee absent-mindedly, even though it's already cold. These small, almost forgettable behaviors show the cracks in their calm. They're not relaxed, they're coping. The most unsettling adult moment comes when a teacher finds a drawing left behind in the classroom. It's a child's sketch, a figure with two long arms, two wide eyes, and a smile that stretches off the page. At first, the teacher laughs it off. Kids draw scary things all the time. But then she sees the corner of the paper stained with a dot of red, as if someone touched it with a bleeding finger. She looks around the empty classroom, suddenly aware of how silent it is, and for a moment, she stops pretending. But as quickly as the fear hits her, it fades. She folds the drawing, places it in her desk, and locks the drawer. This is what Derry teaches adults. Fear is something you hide, even from yourself, especially from yourself. Throughout episode 5, the show cleverly uses adult behavior to explain a larger pattern. Whenever someone tries to speak up, someone else shuts it down. Whenever a clue appears, an authority figure explains it away. Whenever the truth approaches, the town bends, reshapes, and covers it with a softer, more convenient lie. Not because Pennywise forces them to, but because decades of living in Derry have trained them to protect the monster that hunts them. And this silent corruption spreads into the final adult scene of the episode. A city meeting is held to discuss safety concerns after the recent disappearances. It starts hopeful people, demanding answers, worried voices rising, but halfway through, the lights flicker. Just once, just enough to hush the room. When the lights steady again, nobody continues speaking. They sit back down. They look at their hands. Someone coughs, someone else sighs, and the meeting quietly ends with no decisions, no solutions, and no acknowledgement of what started the conversation. This is the heart of episode 5's adult storyline, fear that has evolved into habit, a community whose survival mechanism is silence, a town that protects its darkest secret without ever needing to say a word. Episode 5 is the kind of chapter where the horror doesn't sit in plain sight, it hides in corners, in symbols, in the things characters don't say. It's the episode that tells viewers, look again, because every object and every shadow is doing double work. This section is where the show turns Derry itself into a character with its own vocabulary, one built from patterns, echoes, and small visual messages most people miss on the first watch. One of the most striking details in this episode is the way color is used, especially red. It's obvious to notice balloons, but episode 5 uses red in less direct ways. A neon sign flickers red for a full second longer than the others. A character's sweater has a red thread unraveling near the sleeve. Even a puddle on the street reflects the sky in a washed-out red tone, although the sky above is clearly gray. These touches are not accidents. They signal Pennywise without showing him, teeny reminders that his influence stains everything he touches, even the things people walk past every day. There's also a recurring symbol that appears 3 times in subtle places. It looks like an upside-down smile, carved or scratched into surfaces, a wall behind the schoolyard, the edge of a sink in the police station, and a stair-step in one character's home. It's not sharp or dramatic. It's small and uneven, like it was carved by someone who wasn't fully conscious of what they were doing. This symbol hints at one of Derry's oldest ideas. The town doesn't just frighten people, it guides their hands. It uses them as tools. The adults may not know they're carving anything, but the subconscious of Derry does, and it leaves its marks quietly. Another hidden detail lies in the sound design. When the kids walk through the woods in section 2, the show uses a soft, barely audible pattern, a low hum with a rhythm. It repeats every few seconds. Later in the episode, In an unrelated adult scene, the same hum plays under a conversation at the diner, almost too quietly to hear. If you match the two moments, you notice something chilling. The hum lines up with a heartbeat. Not a human heartbeat, it's slower, heavier, almost like something ancient breathing beneath the town. One of the most underrated symbolic moments occurs during a scene where a character passes an old mural. At first glance, it's just a faded painting of Derry in the early days, children playing, families smiling, the usual small-town nostalgia. But episode 5 reveals something new. If you look at the far left corner, one of the figures has been painted over. The shape is missing, but the outline remains. A faint hand, a blurred face, someone who used to be there but isn't anymore. The mural silently implies that Derry rewrites its own history, erasing people the same way it erases answers. This mural is a visual metaphor for every missing child poster in the show. The town forgets them long before the families do. Another small but meaningful detail is the behavior of animals. They react before humans do, and episode 5 leans into this truth. A flock of birds gathers on telephone wires, all facing the same direction, staring at an empty alley. A cat hisses at a spot under a porch where nothing is visible. Even insects behave strangely. Ants crawl in a perfect circle near the school fence, creating a loop that looks like a crude clown face. Nature knows the truth long before people admit it. Episode 5 also hides a major clue inside one of the flashback fragments. When the screen shows a quick, almost subliminal image from Derry's distant past, you can spot a figure in the background wearing clothes from a different time period, far older than the rest of the scene. The figure's face is blurred, but the posture is unmistakable, head tilted, arms hanging loosely, a stance that matches Pennywise's earliest depictions. This tiny detail connects the past and present, hinting that Pennywise hasn't just been in Derry. For decades, he's been here long before the town even existed. Another symbolic layer appears in the town's architecture. Several buildings have cracks running down their sides, but the cracks form curved shapes, half circles, distorted smiles, crescent-like arcs. They appear too often to be natural. They echo Pennywise's grin, but in a way that feels geological, like the town's very foundations are shaped by him. It suggests something unsettling. Pennywise isn't a visitor to Derry. The town may have been built on top of him, or worse, built because of him. Finally, the most important hidden detail comes in a moment viewers often overlook: a child's chalk drawing on a sidewalk. At first, it's just scribbles: a house, the sun, a stick figure family, but near the corner of the drawing, barely visible, is a small shape with a triangle for a head and two large eyes. The child has drawn it in a way that separates it from the rest of the picture, almost like they were too scared to finish it. Kids don't draw what they don't feel. And in Derry, even children who haven't seen Pennywise sense him. These hidden clues, symbols, and background details create the episode's deeper meaning. The evil in Derry doesn't shout, it whispers. It drips into the environment. It stains objects. It shapes the minds of the living. The scariest part of episode 5 isn't Pennywise's face, it's realizing how deeply the town itself is built around him. This episode teaches us that fear in Derry doesn't come from one monster. It comes from the way the world bends to make room for him.